Bitmine immersion just had the craziest news when we look at what's happening with the market. Now, you saw the stock market over the past week kind of getting hammered. We saw some aggressive selling for the first time in a minute. The NASDAQ broke below the 50-day moving average, and it looked like some supports were going to break. You also saw Bitcoin get hit. So if I just really quickly go show you like the Bitcoin chart and Ethereum, which obviously Bitmine immersion is connected more into Ethereum. We'll go into that in a sec. But Bitcoin breaking below a significant support here as well. Ethereum, and it's important to understand, like, this doesn't seem like a time where, everyone's panicking, like, oh my God, the market's getting wrecked. Same thing, Ethereum getting hit. But again, Bitmine immersion gets some interesting news. And, I've seen the comments here, people saying, this is a scam. I see the short reports, things along those lines. But it's appearing more and more like BMNR is the real deal when it comes to investors right now. So JP Morgan just stepped up and bought $102 million worth of BMNR shares. Pretty crazy. Again, they acquired a 1.9 million shares of BMNR. And again, they started establishing that position pretty aggressively. Now, it's also worth mentioning Cathie Wood and ARK started buying more as well. Definitely worth mentioning. Now, it's not as big of a position, but when you look at the total holdings, you'll see what I'm looking at and why this is so key. Now, it's also worth mentioning Cathie Wood also lowered her price target for Ethereum or for Bitcoin, and is like rotating and saying, okay, well, I'm not going to focus more on Bitcoin as much. I'm going to focus more on Ethereum because that's a bigger opportunity. And you're kind of seeing Wall Street take this path. So today we're going to be going more in a deep dive, some fundamentals, what we're looking at here as far as who owns BMNR, what's going on right now, and where is it at, and where is it ultimately going? Because again, Ethereum is on the downtick right now. You're seeing at the 200 SMA. Is this going to dip? Is this going to collapse? But on the other side of this, you're seeing some of these altcoins go crazy. Zcash just literally went from September $55 into all-time highs of 760, 750. Crazy. You have ICP, and I'm just naming some of these smaller cryptos that are going like vertical right now. So it's kind of giving you some of that alt season vibes. And we do know when alts go crazy, Ethereum is usually the ringleader, right? So again, worth mentioning what we're going to be tracking. And of course, going into BMNR stock, the most important thing here, the buying opportunities, the buy zones, and everything that you should be watching right now. Because right now you're still making lower highs, you're still pushing down. But again, the question is when does this tide kind of shift? And we're going to go all into that. Now, again, the first thing we're going to really be doing is more the fundamental side. Then I'll go into the technicals. I think the fundamentals more important. Personal opinion, okay? Now, before we go crazy into all of that, I got to say one thing. If you want to see exactly how I'm trading, what I'm trading every single day, the Discord link is down below. Again, we go into futures every single day. That's, crystal clear. I do some rundowns as well, the market recap, things I'm looking at. The next thing we do is go into trade ideas for more swing trades. Again, we post swing trades in detail, but again, I'm not going to say that we have a swing trade every single day. That's obviously it'd be crazy. Technicals, more of our scalps, things like that for intraday trades. If you're looking into all that as well, the profits. So again, the link is down below. If you want to get all information, check it out. Now, going into BMNR, okay? Now, I have one more thing. If you want to see all of our information, like if you don't want to pay, and I always try to make other avenues. So if you guys don't want to pay for anything, you can get as much content as you want. YouTube, we post almost 2 videos a day. On Twitter as well, you're getting all of our charts, everything we're looking at, all the news as we see it coming in, any deals, etc. So be on the lookout there as well. And then on TikTok as well, you can check us out. We post like 4 or 5 videos there as well a day. So again, check it out if you want. Now, going into the fundamentals, let's talk about what's recently happened. This is all just this week. Very important to understand, okay? So when we look at what's happening right now as far as institutional ownership, Vanguard, this isn't a new buy. I believe they bought a little bit not too long ago, but this isn't the newest buy, so it's not the most important. But Vanguard's one of the top holders. And then obviously now JP Morgan runs now, I think, into the top 3, top 4 holders of BMNR now with that massive buy of 1.9 million shares valued at $102 million. It's also worth mentioning this is like the first big buy from JPM, which is very interesting. It's also worth mentioning, if you know anything about JP Morgan, that Jamie Dimon has basically said that they're not looking to be buying back shares at this point right now of their own company. So again, they're buying BMNR, which is very interesting that they clearly think it's undervalued right now. Over the last 12 months, institutional inflows into BMNR have an amount of $608 million with about 11.8 million shares acquired. Very important. No institutional sellers are listed for that period based off the data that we've pulled so far. Very important to understand. It's all big buyers coming in, no big selling from any of those buyers. Worth mentioning. Again, now would that make any sense to be selling this on the dip? Because again, big money, investors, hedge funds, they don't look to buy high and sell low. That would be stupid. I know some of you guys like to, buy really cheap stocks and pray to God that it goes to the moon like beyond. But again, worth mentioning, worth watching. They've just been holding and buying and buying and buying. So it's very important to see. Now, again, what I compare this to is something like a micro strategy for myself. Guys, if you remember, everyone was a hater of micro strategy, right? It was a scam. It was this, it was that. You kind of popped up, you popped back down, you kind of sat, $16 to $40. Same type of vibes for a while. And then eventually this thing went bananas, right? It went crazy from 48 all the way into 200, dipped back down, went insane again. So worth mentioning, worth watching when you're looking at where BMNR is and how it's moving respectively. Now, it's also important that we go into the list. I made a compiled list of basically 15 of the largest holders currently of BMNR. So you can see. Now, this has not updated JP Morgan into this, and I'm sorry, they'd be JP Morgan be they'd be number 7 right now. Okay, so this is your list right now, and this also will update for ARK getting more ownership, and we'll see Peter Thiel if he bought more and 13Fs and things like that. But worth mentioning, worth watching. Okay, so again, we have ARK, Cathie Wood, which we just talked about, Peter Thiel, another hedge fund there, Ethereum Tower, another hedge fund holder right there, big buyer. Vanguard, we all know them. Tidal, FMNR, again, JP Morgan will be in there. Van Eck Associates, we all know those. Charles Schwab, Mara Asset Securities, BlackRock, Thomas Lee, we all know him as well. Jonathan Bates, T. Rowe, Strong Tower Advisory Group. I would say 80% of these names are massive names in the play space. I mean, we all know Tom Lee, BlackRock, this is crazy. Charles Schwab, Van Eck, again, Vanguard, even Tidal's a big one, Peter Thiel, ARK Investments, and now JP Morgan. These are all big investors, pretty successful investors. Now, it's important to also understand the viewpoint of what BMNR is, okay? Like, is BMNR a stock that is necessarily the safest name? I want to make that abundantly clear when we're talking about it. I don't think it is. I don't. It's very volatile. It's a very volatile stock, as you can see here. Now, if I look at even on the, when you're kind of trying to get the uptrend back up, you'd move up, $10, $15, and you move down around $10, and you move up like another 15, and then you move back down. So very volatile name. It's not something consistent like per se Apple, right? Which kind of just goes up over time, as you can see here, like consistently. Very, very safe bet. You put your money, you kind of forget about it, you don't think about it. You go into something like Nvidia, which is the best name in the market, right? Just consistently going up and up and up. So you have to understand when you're going into BMNR, like I've mentioned so many times, is it's a riskier asset out there, in my opinion. It's definitely a risk on name. It's one of those mid caps that, has potential, but very important to understand what you're doing when you're, deploying your money here. Now, as far as buying zones and opportunities that I'm looking at right now are going to be 44 down to 40, like we mentioned here, but really 43 down to 40. That was the first buy zone. You're trying to get back above that. Now, ideally that we can see some buying like this, where you push back up and start seeing that move back in above the 50 MA right there. So we'll see. We're not going to start claiming that yet or anything like that. But again, what we're looking for right now. Now, where I would be looking to get really aggressive with buying is if we start seeing more aggressive selling down here near 34, 33, all the way down to $30 and your 200 daily moving average on there, which is a massive, massive support, which is held up so far as well. So very important to understand that. Now, where we start looking at the other side of options, because I know a lot of you guys like trading options, you like getting aggressive, whatever it may be. Cool. I'm not on the side of trading options on BMNR yet until we start breaking structure. Now, previously what we were looking for, and I've mentioned a few times, is getting above 60, $65. That's where I look to get aggressive on options. If we get this breakout here, I think it's all but guaranteed we start going towards $100. I don't think we're there yet, so we have some time to go. On the other side, as long as this continues to develop, you get into positions of over time to where you start to get bigger and better opportunities, or maybe a riskier opportunity if you want, but still you can go, along those options a little bit lower. So when I'm looking at this as well, if we can start getting back above like 44, we start reclaiming the 50-day moving average and breaking out this lower high structure, I think there's a potential to go long on some of these options. But understand they move aggressively and you could get torched. That's why I still think shares are the best metric right now. And I don't like talking about scenarios that are super risky. And again, this isn't financial advice as always, but I am aware that you guys might take action off of some of the things I say. So again, I like to be transparently clear. And if I mention anything, it's something that I'm going to do personally. So I want to make that really clear. Now, obviously what you're really watching here is going to be Ethereum, and Ethereum's at a very significant level right now, your 200 daily moving average right there. Now it's worth mentioning, look at your previous reaction to your 200 daily moving average. Let's go back here quickly to June of this year, 2025. Now you can see we basically sat here from a time period of May, right? You can see right there. We'll bring that right up. We sat right here from May all the way into going into July, which you finally mounted, and then went kind of crazy from 2,400 straight into like 4,800, which was nuts, made new all-time highs. It was a great run by Ethereum. But the question though is, like, can you hold this and stay up? Because if we start to lose the 200 daily moving average, I do think Ethereum could get in trouble. Like for instance, you go look back here, what happened earlier this year with the tariffs and everything like that. Now I will mention and highlight that again, I don't think a tariff type situation is going to happen to where we just see the market free fall off of something Donald Trump says. Totally possible, but I don't think it's going to happen. Now you saw we lost the 200 daily moving average there after we held it for a significant amount of time. Once you lost it, we literally sold off from 3,000 all the way down into lows around 1,400. So again, not a pretty sight. Now again, am I saying that's going to happen right now? I'm not. But I will say these are the risk of what happens when you flip the 200 daily moving average. It's a monster support for a reason. Now, I will say Bitcoin's already flipped its 200 daily moving average, and you're already seeing around $10,000 of selling from that point when you broke below $100,000. So again, not a pretty sight. Now again, you keep seeing me track Bitcoin because I want to be abundantly clear. Bitcoin is the king right now of crypto. And again, even though Kathy has decoupled and kind of gone to the side of, okay, I'm more of a fan of Ethereum, what's going on there? I still think Bitcoin, as far as crypto is concerned, has the biggest name. And so it's really important to understand if Bitcoin starts getting hammered, it's going to be tough, in my opinion, for Ethereum to hold up for the time being as well. The other thing you have to identify too is the potential death cross that's forming right there. Now, again, I want to be clear. You had one form here and you obviously bounced right back up, but that was definitely based off of fundamentals and things that Trump was saying with the market, right? We started establishing trade deals, etc., worth mentioning. So if we don't get some crazy good news, around this time when we dip, you could start seeing some aggressive selling, maybe back down towards this 80K range and these previous lows you had down there. That'd be the first thing I would be targeting as well, this previous high there and to your previous low, which is 75K and to 80K as well, which is going to be a monster support. If I'm looking at that, it has to be where you expect buyers to get a little bit aggressive. So again, both sides of the trade of what we're looking for there. Now, on the other side of this, going into other names like MicroStrategy. And again, I think BMNR is a great example of Ethereum's version of MicroStrategy, right? Micro's obviously focused more on Bitcoin and what's happening there. Now, when you look at what's happening, MicroStrategy is at a monster level. This is a huge support. You can clearly see this is basically your lows of 2025, which you just kind of broke below, and you're trying to bounce back up. Now, again, we talked about losing that 280 level. Once you lost 280, it was kind of it was a shit show from there, right? So again, you're already seeing that, and you saw a death cross there as well on MicroStrategy. So worth mentioning where you're at right now. And if MicroStrategy does lose this level here, you have to assume this gets even uglier. You have room down with no liquidity, basically just until your previous high of 201,200. There's not going to be much here. We move through this area very quickly, which we know if we move through an area quickly, we can move back through it just as quick, if not quicker. So important to understand that when we're moving through this area. So if we start seeing sellers get back in the market, we start losing back under 220, 225, this could easily start aiming back towards 200, which in my opinion would be a catalyst as well for BMNR to get similar type behavior, where BMNR could come back in towards our 200-day moving average to $27 to $30 if we do get that selling. And I will say, based off the institutional buying, like this makes me a bigger believer 100% in BMNR. Like, I am human. There are emotions with investing. So when you see the market getting hit, you see crypto getting hit, and you see obviously, one of your bigger holdings or something that you like a lot, like BMNR, not getting the same amount of love or, moving back up or bouncing as aggressively, which it did bounce pretty aggressively on Friday, but typically it doesn't bounce as aggressively like that if it doesn't have news. This is what you want to see. You want to see who's also invested and who's selling. And this is one of the biggest things right here is that you're not seeing any institutional selling at all right now. You're not really seeing any insider selling either. So again, it makes you pretty confident, it makes you pretty excited about what they're doing. Now, it's also worth mentioning, if you don't know, they've been just acquiring more and more Ethereum, and I have to assume they're going to release some type of filing going into December, end of the year, that they bought obviously more, Ethereum, and getting their average down even lower, which is going to be great to see. And if this was your reaction previously to when Ethereum went nutty and went crazy, the question is what's going to be a reaction when they get an even lower average cost. They own 5% total stake of Ethereum, of the total market cap of Ethereum, and you start going crazy again. That's going to be the real question. So again, as you're able to get some lower averages in, I think you're fine. I don't think BMNR is a scam. I don't think that they're going anywhere. I don't think anything's going to change. That's my personal opinion. I think you're going to see more and more institutional buying, especially the lower you go. I wouldn't be shocked at all. It's one of the more interesting plays, one of the more interesting names out there. Again, I do think, and I want to make this abundantly clear, it's one of the more risky assets, more risky stocks, I think, in the market, because it's solely tied into crypto. And I've made this abundantly clear. We talked a lot about Coinbase over the past year, really in 2024, MicroStrategy, and those were big names. Those were big players that made a lot of money. But it was important that people understood the risk behind them, so you weren't buying short dated options. Like if I'm looking to buy options on a name like BMNR, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm probably going towards 2027, which people are going to be like, what the hell? I don't want to own that. That's crazy. Well, then don't. You don't have to. That's a really cool part of investing. You're in control of your portfolio and what you're doing. Now, as always, I would use me as an indicator. Go do your own research, do all the work for yourself as well. But again, I just think this is one of those names that I'm going to keep talking about and I like a lot. And I think we're going to come back, a few months, maybe a few weeks, maybe it's a year. I don't know. But I think we're going to be really happy with this name overall. And again, this is what you want to see. You want to see people bigger than you buying the stock. That's what you really want to see. Have a good one, traders. See you in the next video.